Hello, everybody. Well, with the recent gear removal cost reduction being in effect, I wanted to take some time to kind of make a video about gearing in general. Um, and this was requested by Zard in the Discord, so here we go. So gearing up your champions is always something that is uh, going to be about what you need exclusive to that champion. So first, I kind of want to talk about champion types and what kind of gear you generally want for them. So there are many classes and subclasses of champions, but the big picture, you've got your supports, you've got your nukers, and you've got your debuffers. I know there are a lot more than that, but for the just to keep the video kind of tight, I'm gonna just kind of focus on those three main classes. So nukers are going to want things such as crit rate and crit damage, and most likely an ignored defense set like Savage, Lethal, Instinct, and Cruel. So let's kind of take a look at those real quick. So Savage gear, where are we at? Where's my Savage gear? There it is. Okay, so you'll see I have a ton of Savage gear saved up, and that's because I never have enough of this stuff. I am on Husk. I don't really want to be on Husk. Let's go take a look at. Well, no, I didn't put any on her. Let's look at Hefrak. So Hefrak is my main nuker, or my strongest nuker, I should say. It's kind of a toss up between him and Genbo, mainly because I think Genbo is technically in some better gear than Hefrak because I geared him up prior to gearing up my Hefrak. I keep going right past Genbo, don't I? There he is. So you'll see like Genbo has incredibly good gauntlets. Plus 16, 6-star legendary gauntlets with attack percent, and even a little bit of crit rate on there as well. But yeah, so as you can see, my Genbo, my PvP nuker, is in all Savage. Same for my Hefrak, and even my Seer, real quick, is in Instinct, which gives a 20% ignore defense. Um, the other sets that we haven't talked about between Savage and Instinct would be Cruel, which is what you get off the clan boss. Now, this one, it's only a two-piece set that does 5% defense ignore, but it also gives you increase of 15% attack percent. So that's really good for attack-based champions, but if you're dealing with a defense-based nuker, you may not want to consider that. I don't think I have any Savage on any of my defense-based nukers. Now, we did kind of look at my Supreme Helheim. I have her kind of in a PvE set right now, mainly for Dark Fae, which is why she doesn't need to be any of that Savage gear. She was previously, but she doesn't really need to be any of that Savage gear or any of that Ignore Defense gear because she's primarily used for killing squishy teams that I don't need to ignore their defense on. So if you were wondering why she was built a little weird. Um, the other set under the ignore defense that we didn't talk about is the best one that many of you may not even know exists, which is the lethal set. So lethal ignores 25% of the enemy defense, which is the same thing that Savage does, but you also get 10% crit rate, meaning that your gear only needs to roll 90% crit, and you get the rest just from the four-piece set. So that's really, really valuable. If we take a look at my Genbo, for instance, he's only at 80% crit rate because he self-buffs, but not every hero does that. He gives himself a 30% crit rate. If we look at my Hefrak, some people don't crit cap their Hefrak, but you should, because of his passive, where he will automatically use his A2 when a teammate dies. So by having him crit capped, like I do, or at least close to it, yeah, he is capped. You get a ton. When that auto goes off, you do get a ton of damage out of that. But back to kind of talking about these sets, you want to be able to ignore the damage, which is the biggest mitigation that champions have, to kind of be able to one shot them, right? Because once they're dead, they can't really fight back. So these sets are really really valuable for that. Now they're most commonly used in PvP, but there's huge value here for PvE. Hefrak is in my spider team. He nukes all the spiders down very easily. And then I have UDK in that team as well. UDK gets killed by the little spiders, and Hefrak then kills them all again. So there's a lot of value there. And having those cruel sets really helps you just get that maximum amount of damage. Um, Now let's talk about support. So support champions, they're going to want survivability so that they can heal your champions or outlive and revive them if necessary. So one of my main supports is Rector Drath. Now I do have her in a bolster set. This is mostly just to get a shield, kind of to start off of a fight. It can be really handy, but I also really like the regen on it by healing 10% every turn. That helps keep her topped off on health, and I don't have to worry about her necessarily dying, and that way she can keep everyone else alive and revive them when necessary. Um, there are other sets. The main reason I just have a ton of bolster gear, and that's kind of why most of my support champions are in bolster. You'll see I have a ton of it. This is just because it's been 2 of the Forge passes in the past, and I've built a lot of it. So that's really the only reason I have all that bolster gear. Um, Also, one of my other supports, we've got Pythion. Pythion is currently in Stone Skin set. Um, this is for PvP purposes to kind of keep him alive longer so that he can revive my team if they die. I really made the switch to Stone Skin when Live Arena came out because I needed a way to really keep my Pythion alive. But to be honest, I'm a little underwhelmed with it. There are definitely champions that can, and Pythion is a champion that can really be great with this, but I don't really like Live Arena that much personally. I don't play a lot of it anymore, so I've been considering taking this off of him because it's a buff. The Stone Skin is a buff, and it's not guaranteed. Like there's less chance of it being stolen, but it can still be stolen. And I've had bosses steal Stone Skin, and it's not fun. So I've been considering changing that because it's actually made him less useful for me on my account as a whole. Another support champ I kind of wanted to talk about is Vrask. Where is he at? There he is. So Vrask is another healer or slash support champion. All of his heals are 10% of the max HP. Now, I don't have him geared. He is a very good character that I do want to use in certain content, but I don't have him geared up right now because every time I'm like, okay, it's time to gear Vrask, I come across another character that I want to gear more, and I end up wasting all my silver. But Vrask is very powerful. You'll see he's in kind of a mixed and matched set that I geared him very early in my account. So lifesteal gear, I had a lot of it at the time. I've gotten rid of a bunch of it, so I probably would put him in something else. And I would love to be able to find crit damage gloves to put on him in order to optimize his healing, because the higher crits he gets, the more heals he would put out. But you'll notice that a lot of the big qualities is that I want them to survive. So you'll see things like well, he does crit damage because of the way his heals work. But I've got an HP banner, HP ring. His damage is based on his HP, so obviously you want to go HP on him. But even other support characters like Rector Drath, I've got HP on the gloves and the chest just to keep her alive longer. So that's kind of the concept there. Now, when we talk about debuffers, generally we want high accuracy. So, for example, we have my Geomancer. So my Geomancer has 506 accuracy. I know this blows the mind of a lot of you, but he just has really good rolls on his gear. So he is in double perception and one set of accuracy. So he's got a double roll there, double roll there. Wow, I didn't realize he had a quadruple roll on HP on that one. Single roll here, single roll here. He is not in an HP in an accuracy chest. And we'll talk about chests in a little bit here, so I won't go into that. But there are chests that have accuracy and resistance. Generally, when you're trying to reach those high levels, you'd want to use those. I just happen to have really good rolls, so I didn't need that. Just because I have decent gear for my dwarves. Another character that I wanted to look at in terms of debuffing is Mishinaki. Mishinaki is a really powerful character. Actually, he is my favorite character. Um, he is going to be placing HP burns, decreased defense, and hex. So he needs to have high accuracy. Well, let me, get back to him. He needs to have high accuracy. So you'll see I do have him in quadruple perception, but he is defense based. So I also have him in a defiance set. Now, originally he was part of my clan boss team. Um, when it was killable, I now run an unkillable team, so I could probably swap him out of this gear if need be, but uh he's still on my clan boss team. He just doesn't take any damage. So I will never move the gear around on him, at least not until I have enough silver saved up that I'm at a point where I can consist make mistakes, because when you're speed tuning, sometimes even +1 speed can be the difference between the success or fail of a speed tune. So I would hate to, swap out this chest for one of the, like, I could get faster boots, but then he'll be too fast. He won't. I need him at 170. If he's at 175, then that screws up the whole speed tune. So this gear is probably just going to sit on him and stay kind of as is. I don't want it to be the case because I want him faster and I do want him for things like Hydra. But for now, he's going to hang out in the gear that he is until I get a chance to change him. Now, speaking of speed and wanting characters faster, I'd like to talk about kind of speed as an aspect that you want to consider for all of your teams. Now, first, we're going to look at my Arbiter. So my Arbiter is in triple speed set, as you can see. We've got HP on the gloves and on the chest for her to be able to stay alive, because she is a reviver, and she does kind of do a debuff with her. She can remove enemy buffs. But the main thing that I want her fast for is because she will speed up the rest of my team. So she'll give increased attack and increased turn meter by 30% on the rest of my team. So ideally, I would have her boost my team, and we would then be able to attack before the enemy team. Her main build is for PvP, so that I can take a turn before the enemy and just win the fight. So I did want to point out, so right now is the dragon 3 times chance for speed. So I did get a whole bunch of new speed gear. One of them were these gloves that I did re-roll. And you'll see here, I got, not only did I already get a boost to speed, but then I got a roll land on the speed. So it's already at 15 speed, which is higher than the base speed of the gauntlets that she's currently wearing. Now, of course, there's always the chance that we could get that sort of proc again. Probably not, but you take a look. Yeah, so we got it on the flat stat attack. Not great, but still, these gloves are already better than the ones she's currently wearing. And I will be putting these up to plus 16 and equipping them on her. And you may say, well, you're going to lose out on some HP, but speed is key for Arbiter and specifically, and on speed gear as well. I did kind of want to look at, now I haven't done a cleanse yet since I ran the dragon today, but I did want to point out that you'll see almost all of my speed gear that I keep or roll is going to have speed as an option. Now this one I did keep despite that, because it has crit rate and crit damage. This I would probably plan to use not as a speed item for someone to go fast. This is probably going to be an item I would use on somebody that needs to hit crit rate cap and would benefit from a little extra crit damage, and just as a somebody that wouldn't be in a perfect set. And we'll talk about that in just a little bit here. But my general rule when it comes to speed gear with a few exceptions, like this piece right here that has double crit rate and crit damage, if it doesn't have speed on it, I'm getting rid of it. Um, there are always exceptions to that. So sometimes, like in this case, crit rate and crit damage on the same slot, same item. If I get a proc on one or both of these, that's a piece of gear that can help me reach crit cap on a future character. So I may hold on to that, right? This piece, while it is a legendary, and I did put a lot of stats into it, I probably built this up a while ago. It doesn't have any default speed on it. Yes, it procs defense. Maybe I find a use for it, but most likely I won't, and I'm probably going to end up getting rid of this one at some point. I think like this piece right here, I'm good. I feel confident deleting this piece. It's a speed weapon, but we don't have any speed stats on it. And HP and crit damage. I mean, I don't really think there's a scenario where I would want that piece of gear, so I sell it. When I'm looking for speed gear, I'm looking for speed. So if it doesn't get speed on it by default, there's really no point in me holding on to it, because I'm not going to use it most of the time for other purposes. Now, some characters will also kind of act as a hybrid of different types. So, for example, one of my biggest nukers is my Seer. I do have Seer in Instinct, which is Ignore Defense gear, and Crit Damage gear. And you'll see she is super high crit damage, well, at least for my account. 239 crit damage. Her kit, basically, she takes all the friendly and enemy debuffs and does damage based on how many of those buffs she removes. So she can one shot entire waves in the Doom Tower, provided there are enough buffs on the battlefield. So she is a very valuable character for me. And obviously we would go with crit damage on the amulet, crit damage on the gloves where possible, and I'm making a lot of sacrifices to get the crit rate up on other pieces of gear. But she's geared pretty well and kind of hitting that. Oh, but what makes her hybrid is that in order for her to do damage, she needs to have high accuracy as well to remove those buffs off of the enemies. If she can't remove those buffs off the enemies, then that's damage coming out of her potential pool of damage. So she does need to have high accuracy as well. Now, another character that is a bit of a hybrid that I have is Ragash. You'll see Ragash, he is a nuker. He's a defense-based nuker. He's often considered in at sometimes the top 10. I mean, I think he's top 10, but others content creators may feel differently, but he's definitely in the top 15 category for defense-based nukers. So when you hear the word nuker, you may say, well, Roadblock, you said nukers need to be in Savage or, defense ignoring gear. And I do agree with that sentiment, but Ragash also has other value in his A2 that does do a ton of damage, but also decreases defense and stuns. I'm using him as a wave champion for Doom Tower Hard. So he goes into these difficult waves and stuns the enemy team so that they don't get a turn, thus giving me the chance to kill them without losing any of my champions. So I basically built a team with 5 stunners that can go in there and clear almost any wave in Doom Tower Hard. At least so far, I have not cleared Doom Tower Hard, but as I'm progressing through Doom Tower Hard, Ragash and other champions like Drexstar and Syl have proven to be very important for me to accomplish those goals. And you'll see that even Syl has almost 400 accuracy for that very reason. Um, well, but so we've kind of talked about class-based gearing, but there are a few general rules with gearing that I want to go over as well. So a few of the general concepts when it comes to gearing, or at least for me, I have a very specific rule that I use. Um, And that is I will not have any flat stat items on gloves, chest, or boots. And I'll show you here. So if we filter those three, and we go to primary stats and we do flat stats, you'll see I only have two pieces, right? This is an attack chest and an HP boots. Instant sell those. Because they the percent based benefit of the stat is way more important than completing the set. So you may have a set like Relentless is a good example, and you're gonna say, well, I want my characters to take extra turns, but I only have 5 pieces with percent based, and look, they're all defense, and 2 of them are resistance. What do I have an attack based champion. I needed an attack percent chest to complete my 4 piece. So why would I sell those to because I need to make the 4 piece? The answer is that making the 4 piece isn't as important as maintaining the stats. I mean, Relentless is awesome, 18% chance for an extra turn. That's great, but in reality, the percent based stats are going to be more beneficial to the character than completing the set. Now, there's always exceptions to every rule, and I'm sure there are worlds out there where, or conditions out there that you're going to want to specifically get a specific kind of set on a character. But for the most part, it's better just to have stats. And I do have an example of that. Um, this is my Seeker. Seeker is in my clan boss team. Just a quick overview about why he's on my clan boss team. He has a turn meter fill that's practically on a 2-turn cooldown because he gets granted an extra turn off of it. So he's really great in speed tunes because it's really easy to accomplish certain speeds with him in the team. Okay, so he is in my speed team. If we look back at his gear again, he has 0 sets. None of his sets match. And he does a ton of damage in my comp. He is crit capped at 102% with 186 crit damage. We've got crit damage on his amulet because he does crit every single hit, and he provides a ton of damage. Between that and his War Master mastery, he actually does a lot. I mean, he's alive for 50 turns, and even though you can keep a team alive for 50 turns, you still got to figure out a way to get the 70.3, I think it is, million damage. So you need damage from every single source that you have. Um, I do have another champion that we'll talk about a little bit in my clan boss team that kind of is in the same respect where you need to squeeze out every little tiny bit of damage, and Seeker is one of the ways that I squeeze out that tiny bit of damage. Not only does he make my speed tune work, but he also provides me with the damage that I need to move forward. Now he is a defense based, but yeah, see he's one of the older defense based champions where his damage is actually based on attack, which is interesting. Um, Now I kind of wanted to talk about crit rate and crit damage. Okay, so I've briefly been covering it. I may even have gone specifics into it, but gloves can roll crit rate or crit damage. Now, generally speaking, you're going to want to use either crit rate or crit damage on any of your nukers, or damage dealers when possible. For your debuffers and support, you're probably going to want to be looking at defense or HP gloves. Defense here for my debuffer. Who else would be? I think he's in defense gloves. Oh no, he's in crit rate. That's a complicated story, and I don't want this video to be too long. But there are exceptions to every rule, but if you do have somebody that you plan to be placing debuffs, but you want them to stay alive and you're not worried about them necessarily getting big hits in, you may want to consider defense or HP gloves. Attack percent gloves are useful in certain scenarios, like bomb champions. I won't go too much into detail on them because I don't have any bomb champions myself, or at least I don't use any of them. But it is an option that you would go to. But for the most part, generally speaking, you want to have crit damage or crit rate on your gloves. Now, when do you want to choose crit rate and when do you want to choose crit damage? The truth of the matter is it's going to depend on your gear. In the early game, you're probably going to be using crit rate gloves. The main reason being that you just don't have enough good gear elsewhere to make up for the crit rate that you would lose. So 6-star plus 16 crit rate gloves gives you 60% crit rate. Well, you only need 85% to be 100%. So you're already almost there. So you just need to find a few other pieces with crit rate. Now, I will admit, my Armiger is only 97% crit. He's not crit capped. But you don't have to worry so much when you use crit rate gloves about getting crit rate rolls on the rest of your gear. Where crit damage gloves can really boost your damage in general. So you'll see here I have crit damage gloves. Now they do have crit rate on them, but I also have to make some sacrifices. You'll see this is a 4-star chest. Why am I using a 4-star chest on my best geared nuker? Because it has 12% crit rate. And I need that crit rate more than I need 20 more percent. Or what would it be? Yeah, 20 more percent attack? I don't know. I don't know who has a 6-star. Yeah, it's probably going to be 20% more attack, right? So, because I need to work with the gear that I have, right? Here again, we have crit damage, but he got to roll on the crit rate, and you'll see almost every item that I have has crit rate rolls on it. And some of them even have double rolls just for me to barely hit the 100% exactly. Now, there are tools to help you benefit to find this. Hell Hades Artifact Extractor is one of those tools that can really help make this easier. One thing I do want to touch on when you're talking about damage dealing is that crit damage amulets are not always the answer. Most of the time, they are. Just to be clear, if you're building a damage dealer, you want them to do damage, you're probably going to want to get crit damage out of them. But there are some exceptions. One of my biggest exceptions is my Eris. My Eris is not crit capped. She is 24% to crit because she has to hit an incredibly high speed at 260. So I don't have the luxury of finding speed and crit gear. So rather than worrying about her critting, to get extra damage out of her in Clan Boss, I have her in a toxic set. So she puts the baby poisons on the Clan Boss every time she attacks, and she gets to attack every time the Clan Boss takes a turn. She also has a really high speed, so she attacks a lot with her base attack. Because she's not crit capped, I gain less value. In my opinion, I haven't run the numbers, but in my opinion, I gain less value if I was to run a crit damage neck on her. And you can see this is probably, one of these necks is probably what was on her, because they're both crit damage necks with, and I, was like, oh yeah, I need extra damage out of her. Let me throw a crit damage neck on there. But the reality is that it's not going to provide any value because she's only going to crit a quarter of the time. Yes, she attacks a bunch, but I would rather just buff her crit damage or her attack damage in general, so that when she does crit, it will do more damage. But when her regular attacks, which she mostly does 75% of the time, will be more than what I would get if I did just a crit damage gloves or crit damage neck. So that's kind of the things that you need to consider. How are you using this champion, and how are you going to benefit from it? Eris does a ton of damage in my clan boss, and one of the reasons is because of I went with this set, which was very important for the playstyle of the character, and I had to work within the limitations of that set because it wasn't easy to get the speeds that I needed. I needed a triple roll on this weapon on speed and a double roll here, a single roll here to be able to hit the speeds that I wanted out of a toxic set. And toxic set is a huge part of the damage done on clan boss. So exceptions to every rule, I was talking about like, oh, you don't want to make sacrifices to complete a set, and I didn't. Still, she's in attack percent chest and she is in HP percent gloves, so I didn't make sacrifices for flat stats just to get the toxic set to work. I still used the good pieces of gear. Now, that pretty much is going to be the end of the video. There are a lot more intricacies when it comes to gearing, and honestly, probably a bunch of stuff that I didn't even really touch on today. So if you have any other specific questions regarding gearing, please post them in the comments or post them in the Discord. If you have any other topics that you want me to make a video about, please put that down in the comments or in the Discord. The next couple videos that I'm planning on doing, I will be doing a Clan v Clan video. That one's going to be not just about how to succeed in Clan v Clan, but also my expectations for Clan v Clan, because I'm going to be raising those expectations just a little bit. Most of you are far exceeding those expectations, but I do want to be more transparent about what I need out of you guys when it comes Clan v Clan time. And then I'm considering maybe an arena video as well. So if you have any particular subjects that you would like me to cover, please post them into the Discord or in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your day.